Emma Carter wiped the sweat from her forehead as she finished cleaning the last hallway of the palace. The work was hard, but she was grateful to have it. When Earth had opened diplomatic relations with the Thraxian Empire 6 months ago, many humans had jumped at the chance to work on an alien world. Emma had been one of them. She needed the money and the adventure seemed exciting. But there was something strange about this palace. Every night without fail a terrible crying sound filled the halls. It was so sad and so haunting that it made Emma's heart ache. The other human servants talked about it in whispers during their meals. They said it was the Emperor's dragon, a creature named Nethys who was bonded to the ruler himself. Nobody knew why the dragon cried. Nobody dared to ask. The Thraxian people who worked in the palace simply accepted it as normal. They had heard it for years, they said. It was just the way things were. Emma could not accept that. She had been raised by a grandmother who always said that if someone was crying, you helped them. It did not matter if they were a stranger or a friend. Pain was pain and it deserved kindness. Tonight, Emma made up her mind. She would find the dragon and discover why it cried every single night. She waited until her shift ended at midnight. The palace was quieter then, with most of the day workers gone and only a few night guards patrolling the corridors. Emma knew the palace layout well enough by now. She had cleaned every section over the past 3 months. The crying always came from the eastern wing, where the Imperial Garden was located. The garden was strictly off-limits to servants. Signs in multiple languages made that very clear, but Emma had never been good at following rules when someone needed help. She slipped through the servant corridors, moving as quietly as she could. Her soft shoes made almost no sound on the polished floors. The palace was beautiful in an alien way. The walls glowed with a soft blue light that seemed to come from within the stone itself. Sometimes the light pulsed gently like breathing. As Emma got closer to the garden, the crying grew louder. It was not a roar or a screech. It was a keening sound, like someone sobbing with their whole soul. It made Emma want to cry too. She reached a large doorway that opened into the garden. There were no guards here at night. Perhaps they could not bear to listen to the crying up close. Emma stepped through the doorway and stopped, her breath catching in her throat. The garden was enormous. It stretched out under the light of 3 moons that hung in the purple sky. Strange plants with silver leaves grew in carefully tended beds. Water fountains made of crystal sparkled in the moonlight. And in the center of it all was the dragon. Nethys was the most beautiful and terrifying thing Emma had ever seen. The dragon was huge, easily as big as a house. Her scales were deep blue, almost black, and they shimmered like jewels. Her wings were folded against her long, serpentine body, and from her enormous eyes tears streamed down and fell to the ground. But these were not ordinary tears. They glowed with a silver light. When they hit the ground, they turned into tiny crystals that sparkled like diamonds. Emma stood frozen for a moment, not sure what to do. The dragon was so magnificent and so sad. She looked like a queen in exile, weeping for a lost kingdom. Then Nethys's enormous head turned. One eye, as large as a dinner plate, focused on Emma. A voice spoke inside Emma's head, not in her ears, but directly in her mind. Who dares enter this place? The voice was ancient and powerful, but also tired. So very tired. Emma's legs shook, but she stepped forward. My name is Emma Carter. I'm a human. I work here as a maid. A maid? The dragon's mental voice sounded surprised. You risk punishment to come here. Why? I heard you crying, Emma said simply. Every night I hear you cry. It makes me so sad. I wanted to know why. I wanted to see if I could help. The great eye blinked slowly. Emma could see her own reflection in it, tiny and fragile next to this massive creature. You want to help me? Nethys sounded like she could not believe it. A human servant wants to help a dragon? Yes, Emma said firmly. Everyone deserves kindness when they're hurting. It doesn't matter if you're human or dragon or anything else. Nethys was quiet for a long moment. Then she slowly lowered her massive head until it rested on the ground near Emma. Up close, Emma could see that each scale was as big as her hand. They looked smooth and warm. Sit, Emma Carter, Nethys said, her mental voice softer now. If you truly wish to know my sorrow, then I will tell you. But be warned, it is not a happy tale. Emma sat down on a nearby bench made of white stone. It was still warm from the day's sun. She folded her hands in her lap and waited. I am a memory keeper, Nethys began. That is what my kind does. We bond with the emperors of Thraxia. When we bond, something magical happens. We become connected. We can share thoughts and feelings. But more than that, we absorb their memories. The dragon's tail curled tighter around her body. More tears fell, creating a small pile of crystals on the ground. When an emperor dies, their memories do not die with them. They live on inside me. I have been bonded to 5 emperors, Emma Carter. The current Emperor Valen is the 5th. The other 4 are all dead now. But they are not gone. They live inside my mind. I remember everything they experienced. Every joy, every sorrow, every triumph, every failure. I remember their first kiss. I remember the birth of their children. I remember their last breath. Emma felt her own eyes filling with tears. That sounds like a beautiful gift. It is also a curse, Nethys said quietly. Every night when the world grows quiet and there are no distractions, all those memories rise up inside me. I experience their deaths again and again. I feel their fear. I feel their pain. I feel their regret for things left undone and words left unsaid. 4 emperors, Emma Carter. I die 4 times every single night. Emma could not help it. She started to cry. She cried for this magnificent creature who carried such a heavy burden. She cried for the emperors who were gone. She cried for the loneliness of it all. I'm so sorry, Emma whispered. I'm so sorry. Why do you cry for me? Nethys asked, and she sounded genuinely confused. You do not know me. You do not know them. Because you're in pain, Emma said, wiping her eyes. That's enough. That's all I need to know. The next night, Emma returned to the garden. She half expected guards to stop her, but none did. Perhaps Nethys had told them to let her pass. Or perhaps the guards were simply relieved that someone else was dealing with the crying dragon. Nethys was waiting for her in the same spot. The pile of crystal tears from the night before had been cleaned away, but fresh ones were already forming. You came back, Nethys said, and Emma heard surprise in the mental voice. Of course I did, Emma replied. She sat down on the same white bench. I said I wanted to help. I meant it. No one can help me, Nethys said sadly. This is my fate. My purpose. I am the keeper of memories, and memories bring pain. Emma thought about that for a moment. She had brought something with her tonight. A small book from Earth, one she had packed when she left home. It was a collection of poems her grandmother used to read to her. Can I ask you something? Emma said. You may ask anything. When you remember these emperors, do you only remember the sad parts? Or do you remember the happy parts too? Nethys was quiet for a long time. Her great eye blinked slowly. I remember everything, she finally said. The good and the bad. The happy and the sad. All of it. Then tell me something happy, Emma said. Tell me about a good memory. Anyone you want. Why would I do that? Nethys asked. That is not why I weep. Maybe that's the problem, Emma said gently. Maybe you're spending all your time thinking about the endings instead of the middles. Every life has sad parts, but it has happy parts too. If you only focus on the deaths, you're forgetting to honor the lives. Nethys made a sound like a deep rumble. Emma worried she had made the dragon angry. But then she realized the dragon was thinking. There was a day, Nethys said slowly, when Emperor Caney, the one who came before Valen, went swimming in the palace pools. He was very dignified normally, very serious. But that day he laughed like a child. His consort pushed him into the water as a joke, and instead of being angry, he pulled her in too. They splashed each other and laughed until they could barely breathe. I remember how the sunlight sparkled on the water. I remember how happy he was, Emma smiled. That's a beautiful memory. Yes, Nethys said, and her mental voice sounded different. Lighter somehow. It was a beautiful day. I'd forgotten about it. I had buried it under all the sad things. What else do you remember? Emma asked. Tell me more, and so Nethys did. She talked about Emperor Darren, who had loved music and could play 17 different instruments. She talked about Empress Lisa, who had a garden full of flowers and talked to each plant like they were her children. She talked about Emperor Tom, who was a terrible cook, but insisted on making breakfast for his family every morning anyway. The stories went on for hours. Sometimes Nethys still cried as she told them, but the tears seemed different now. They were not just tears of grief. They were tears of remembering, of treasuring, of love. When Emma finally left that night, she noticed something. Nethys was still crying, but the sound was not quite as desperate as before. The next night, Emma brought a flower from the palace grounds. It was small and white with purple edges. She gave it to Nethys as a gift. What is this for? Nethys asked. Just because, Emma said. My grandmother used to say that gifts don't need reasons. They're just ways of saying you care. Nethys stared at the tiny flower for a long time. Then, very carefully, she used the tip of one massive claw to place it in a crack in the stone near where she lay. She treated it like the most precious treasure in the world. They talked again that night. Emma told Nethys about Earth, about seasons and oceans and cities that touched the sky. Nethys told Emma about the history of the Thraxian Empire, about worlds Emma had never heard of and wonders beyond imagination. A week passed. Then 2. Every night Emma visited the garden. Every night she and Nethys talked. The dragon still cried, but not as much. And sometimes, just sometimes, Emma heard something that sounded almost like laughter. The other servants noticed that Emma was tired during the day. They wondered where she went at night. Some were curious. Others were concerned. But Emma kept her secret. This time with Nethys felt special, almost sacred. She did not want to ruin it by making it public. But secrets in a palace never stay secret for long. One evening, Emma arrived at the garden to find Nethys agitated. The dragon's tail was lashing back and forth, and her eyes were bright with worry. "What's wrong?" Emma asked immediately. "The Emperor knows," Nethys said. "He knows you have been coming here. He knows we have been talking. Emma, you must leave and not come back. He is very angry. If he finds you here, he will punish you." "Punish me for what?" Emma asked. "For being kind to you?" "For breaking the rules," Nethys said. "For trespassing in the Imperial Garden. For disturbing his bonded companion." "I haven't disturbed you," Emma protested. "I've helped you."
"Haven't I?"
"You have," Nethys said, and her mental voice cracked with emotion. "You have helped me more than you know. These past weeks have been the happiest I have had in decades. But that does not matter to the Emperor. He does not understand. He cannot understand." "Then I'll explain it to him," Emma said stubbornly. "You cannot speak to the Emperor," Nethys said, almost laughing at the idea. "You are a servant. He is the ruler of 12 star systems. It does not work that way." "Well, maybe it should," Emma said. Before Nethys could respond, a voice spoke from the shadows near the garden entrance. It was cold and sharp as ice. Maybe what should work what way? Emma spun around. A tall figure stepped into the moonlight. He wore robes of silver and deep purple. His skin was pale blue and his eyes were a striking amber color. His hair was dark with streaks of silver, and he carried himself with absolute authority. Emperor Valen Drokath had arrived. Emma's heart pounded so hard she thought it might burst from her chest. She had seen Emperor Valen from a distance before, during formal ceremonies where servants lined the halls, but she had never been this close to him. He was tall, much taller than any human, and his presence filled the garden like a storm. "I asked you a question," Emperor Valen said. His voice was not loud, but it demanded an answer. "Maybe what should work what way?" Emma knew she should bow. She should apologize. She should beg for forgiveness. That was what servants did when they were caught breaking rules. But something in her refused to be scared. Nethys needed help. That was more important than protocol. "Maybe you should let people explain themselves before you get angry at them," Emma said, lifting her chin. "And maybe you should care more about your dragon's happiness than about enforcing rules." The silence that followed was terrible. Even the night insects seemed to stop chirping. Nethys made a low, worried sound in her throat. Emperor Valen's eyes narrowed. He took a step closer to Emma, and she had to fight the urge to back away. "You dare speak to me this way? You, a human servant?" "I speak this way because someone needs to," Emma said. Her voice shook, but she kept going. "Nethys has been crying every single night for years. Everyone in this palace hears it. Everyone knows about it. But nobody does anything. Nobody even tries to help her. They just accept it as normal." "It is normal," Valen said coldly. "Nethys is a memory keeper. The memories bring pain. There is nothing to be done about it." "That's not true," Emma argued. "There is something to be done. You can talk to her. You can spend time with her. You can remind her that she's not just a storage box for dead people's thoughts. She's a living being who needs friendship and comfort." "You know nothing about our bond," Valen snapped. "Nothing about our ways. You have been here for mere months. I have been bonded to Nethys for 67 years. Then why does she cry every night?" Emma shot back. "If your bond is so strong, if you care about her so much, why is she so unhappy?" The Emperor's face went pale, then flushed with anger. "How dare you? Stop!" Nethys's voice rang out, not in mines, but aloud. The sound was like thunder and music combined. It echoed off the garden walls and made both Emma and Valen freeze. "Both of you, stop this." The dragon lifted her great head. Her eyes were bright with tears, but also with something else. Determination, maybe. Or courage. "Emma speaks the truth, my Emperor," Nethys said. "She is blunt and perhaps disrespectful, but she is not wrong. I have been lonely. I have been drowning in memories, and you have been avoiding me." Valen turned to look at his bonded companion. For the first time, Emma saw something other than anger in his face. She saw pain. "Nethys, let me finish," the dragon said firmly. "You avoid me because when you look at me, you think about death. You think about the day when you will die and become another memory inside my mind. You think about your father's death, which I carry within me. It hurts you to be near me now, so you stay away. And I am left alone with my grief." The Emperor said nothing. He just stood there, his hands clenched at his sides. "But Emma has shown me something these past weeks," Nethys continued. "She has reminded me that I am not just a tomb for dead emperors. I am also a treasure chest for beautiful moments. For laughter and love and all the good things that make life worth living. She has helped me see that memory is not meant to torture me. It is meant to honor those who are gone." Nethys turned her gaze to Emma. "And she did all this just by being kind. Just by listening. Just by caring enough to ask why I was sad." Emma felt tears running down her cheeks. She had not expected Nethys to defend her. She had not expected any of this. Emperor Valen looked at Emma for a long moment. Then he looked at Nethys. Then he sat down heavily on the white stone bench as if his legs could no longer hold him. "I am afraid," he said quietly. The admission seemed to cost him greatly. "I watch my father's memories through Nethys's eyes, and I am afraid. He was so strong, and then he became so weak. He suffered at the end. He was afraid of being forgotten, and I promised him that Nethys would remember him, that he would never truly be gone. But then I realized that one day I will be the one dying. I will be the one afraid, and Nethys will carry me inside her, and she will suffer for it." He looked up at his dragon, and Emma saw tears in his alien eyes. "I could not bear it. I could not bear to be close to you, knowing that I was giving you another burden to carry. So I stayed away. I thought I was protecting you, but I was only hurting you more." Nethys made a sound that was half sob, half laugh. "Oh, my dear friend. My dear foolish friend. You were never a burden. None of them were. They are not weights that drag me down. They are wings that help me fly." "I don't understand," Valen said. "Emma, tell him," Nethys said. "Tell him what you told me about the libraries." Emma wiped her eyes and took a deep breath. "On Earth we have these places called libraries. They're buildings full of books. Some of the books are thousands of years old. The people who wrote them are long dead, but the books keep living. They keep teaching people and making people feel things. We call them immortal because even though the authors are gone, their words survive forever." She looked at Emperor Valen. "Nethys is like a library. She's not a graveyard. She's the way you become immortal. When you die, you won't be gone. You'll be part of her. Your laugh will be her laugh. Your wisdom will be her wisdom. Your love will be her love. That's not sad. That's beautiful." Valen stared at Emma. Then he stared at Nethys. Then slowly he stood up and walked to his dragon. He placed one hand on her massive snout, a gesture so intimate that Emma looked away, feeling like she was intruding. "I have been a fool," Valen whispered. "Forgive me, old friend. Forgive me for wasting our time together. Forgive me for making you lonely." Nethys closed her eyes and leaned into his touch. "There is nothing to forgive. We are both fools, I think. We both forgot what matters. But perhaps this small human has reminded us. They stayed like that for a long time. The Emperor and his dragon reconnecting after years of distance." Emma stood quietly, not wanting to interrupt. Finally, Valen turned to her. "Emma Carter, I owe you an apology." "You don't owe me anything, Your Majesty," Emma said quickly. "Yes, I do," Valen insisted. "You showed courage tonight. More than that, you showed wisdom, and you showed my companion kindness when no one else would. That deserves recognition, not punishment." He smiled, and it transformed his whole face. He looked younger, less burdened. "Thank you, Emma Carter. You have given me back something I thought I had lost." The next few weeks brought changes to the Imperial Palace. Servants whispered about how Emperor Valen was seen in the garden every evening now, sitting with his dragon and talking for hours. The dragon's nightly crying continued, but it was different, softer. And sometimes, people heard two voices in the garden at night, speaking and laughing together. Emma continued her work as a maid, but she noticed that the other servants treated her differently now. Some looked at her with respect, others with curiosity, a few with jealousy. Word had spread about what she had done, though the details were fuzzy. All anyone knew for sure was that the human servant had somehow helped the emperor and his dragon. One morning, Emma was summoned to the throne room. Her supervisor delivered the news with wide eyes and a nervous voice. "The emperor wants to see you today at noon. Don't be late." Emma's stomach twisted with anxiety. She borrowed a cleaner uniform from another servant and spent extra time making sure her hair was neat. She had no idea what the emperor wanted. Maybe he had changed his mind about being grateful. Maybe he was going to punish her after all. At noon exactly, Emma entered the throne room. It was enormous, with a ceiling so high she could barely see it. The floor was polished stone that reflected everything like a mirror. And at the far end, on a throne of silver and crystal, sat Emperor Valen. But he was not alone. Nethys was there too, coiled beside the throne. Her presence made the huge room feel smaller. Dozens of other beings filled the room as well. Courtiers and advisors and officials from different species, all wearing fancy clothes and important expressions. Emma walked forward on shaking legs. She had been told to kneel when she reached the steps leading up to the throne, so she did. "Emma Carter." Emperor Valen's voice filled the room. He spoke formally, projecting his voice so everyone could hear. "Approach." Emma stood up and climbed the steps. Up close, she could see that Valen was wearing his most formal robes, the ones encrusted with gems that caught the light. He looked every inch the powerful emperor, but when their eyes met, he gave her a tiny, encouraging smile. "Emma Carter," he said again, "you came to my world as a simple servant. You took a job cleaning floors and washing dishes. No one expected anything remarkable from you. You were just another human worker, grateful for employment." Emma's heart sank. This sounded like the beginning of a dismissal speech. "But you proved yourself to be much more than that," Valen continued. "You saw suffering and chose to address it, even though it was not your responsibility. You showed compassion to a being who was not of your species, not of your world, not of your concern. You broke rules, yes, but you broke them for the right reasons." He stood up from his throne and descended the steps until he was standing right in front of Emma. "You reminded a dragon of her purpose. You reminded an emperor of his bond. You bridged a gap that had been growing for years. And you did it all with nothing but kindness and common sense." Valen turned to address the assembled court. "I have decided to create a new position in the Imperial Palace. We will call it Cultural Ambassador. This person will help us understand each other better. Not through treaties and formal agreements, but through friendship and genuine connection. They will remind us that despite our differences, we all share the same basic needs. The need to be heard, the need to be valued, the need to be kind." He looked back at Emma. "Emma Carter, I offer you this position. You will no longer be a maid. You will be an ambassador. You will have an office, a staff, and the authority to work directly with me and my council. What say you?" Emma's mouth fell open. She could not believe what she was hearing. "Your Majesty, I'm not qualified. I don't have any diplomatic training. I've never done anything like this before." "You have the only qualification that matters," Nethys spoke, her mental voice reaching everyone in the room. "You have empathy. You have the ability to see pain and meet it with kindness. That is rarer than any training or degree." Emma looked at the dragon, then at the emperor, then at all the important people watching her. Her first instinct was to say no, to tell them they had the wrong person. She was just Emma Carter from Ohio, a girl who had barely finished community college before coming to work in space. But then she thought about her grandmother, who had always told her that kindness was the most important thing in the world. She thought about Nethys weeping alone in the garden because no one cared enough to ask why. She thought about how sometimes the smallest actions could make the biggest difference. "Yes," Emma said, her voice stronger now. "I accept. I'll do my best to help." The court erupted in applause. The sound was strange because different species clapped in different ways. Some used their hands, some stamped their feet, some made clicking sounds with their mouths. But the meaning was clear. They approved. Emperor Valen placed a hand on Emma's shoulder. "Thank you, Emma Carter. I believe you will do great things." That night, Emma went to the garden not as a trespassing servant, but as an official visitor. She found Nethys waiting for her, and for the first time the dragon was not crying at all. "How do you feel?" Emma asked, sitting on her usual bench. "Lighter," Nethys said simply. "I still carry the memories. They still hurt sometimes. But Valen and I have been talking about them together, sharing them. When I tell him about his father's happy moments, he smiles. When I tell him about his grandfather's proudest achievements, his eyes light up. The memories are not just my burden anymore. They are our treasure," Emma smiled. "I'm so glad." "It is because of you," Nethys said. "You changed everything." "I just asked why you were crying," Emma said. "That's all." "Sometimes that is enough," Nethys replied. "Sometimes that is everything." 3 months had passed since Emma became the cultural ambassador. Her new job was different from anything she had ever done before. She had an office in the palace, though it was small. She had an assistant, a young Thraxian named Cole, who helped her understand the complicated social customs. And most importantly, she had the Emperor's support. Emma's job was to help humans and Thraxians understand each other better. She organized cultural exchange events where humans taught Thraxians about Earth customs, and Thraxians taught humans about their own traditions. She mediated disputes when misunderstandings happened. She answered questions from both sides about everything from food preferences to religious beliefs. It was hard work, but Emma loved it. She loved seeing the moment when someone from one species suddenly understood something about the other species. She loved watching friendships form between beings who had nothing in common except curiosity and kindness. But her favorite part of the job was still the evenings. She spent in the garden with Nethys and Emperor Valen. Tonight, all 3 of them were together as usual. Emma sat on her white stone bench. Valen sat on the ground beside his dragon, something he never would have done before because it was not dignified enough for an emperor, and Nethys lay curled around them both, her massive body creating a sheltered space that felt safe and warm. "Tell me about the first emperor you bonded with," Emma said. She had learned that asking Nethys to share memories was a gift. It helped the dragon process them, and it kept the dead emperors alive in a good way. "Emperor Darren," Nethys said, her mental voice warm with affection. "He was young when we bonded. Only 23 years old. His father had died unexpectedly, and he was not prepared to rule. He was so scared, Emma. He cried the night before his coronation. He said he was not ready, that he would fail everyone." "What did you tell him?" Phylan asked, leaning against his dragon's side. "I told him that no one is ever ready for the biggest moments of their life," Nethys said. "I told him that courage is not about being unafraid. It is about being afraid and doing the right thing anyway. And I told him that he would never be alone, because I would be with him every step of the way." "Was he a good emperor?" Emma asked. "He was a wonderful emperor," Nethys replied. "He ruled for 42 years. He made mistakes, of course. Everyone does. But he learned from them. He cared deeply about his people, and he loved his family with everything he had. When he died, his last words were, 'Thank you for a beautiful life.'" Tears rolled down Nethys's face as she spoke, but they were not tears of agony. They were tears of love and remembrance. The crystals they formed glowed softly in the moonlight. "I want to be like that," Valen said quietly. "When my time comes, I want to look back and feel gratitude instead of regret." "Then live that way now," Emma said. "Don't wait until the end to appreciate what you have." Valen smiled at her. "You are very wise for someone so young." "I'm not wise," Emma protested. "I just pay attention to what matters." "That is wisdom," Nethys said. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the night sounds of the garden. Strange insects chirped. Water trickled in the fountains. The wind rustled through the silver leaves of the alien plants. "Emma," Valen said eventually, "I have been meaning to ask you something. Do you ever regret coming here? Do you miss Earth?" Emma considered the question carefully. "I miss some things," she admitted. "I miss my grandmother, though I can talk to her through video calls. I miss the smell of rain on concrete, which sounds weird, but it's true. I miss pizza and coffee and other Earth foods." She smiled. "But I don't regret coming here. This has been the greatest adventure of my life. I've learned so much. I've met amazing people, human and alien. I've made a real difference, which is something I never thought I would do. And I've found friends I never expected to have." She looked at Nethys, then at Valen. "I found you too. That alone makes everything worth it." Nethys made a pleased rumbling sound. We are fortunate to have found you as well, small friend. I have a question for both of you, Emma said. What do you think happens after all this? After I finish my work here, I mean. Do you think humans and Thraxians will really become friends? Or will we just go back to being polite strangers? Valen thought about that. I think it depends on people like you, he said. People who are willing to reach across the gap. People who choose kindness over fear. If there are enough people like that on both sides, then yes, I believe we can become true friends. There will be challenges, Nethys added. There will be misunderstandings and conflicts. Different species see the world differently. But if we remember to ask why instead of just getting angry, if we remember to listen instead of just waiting to speak, then we have a chance. That's what you did for me, Emma, Nethys continued. You asked why I was crying. You listened to my answer, and you responded with compassion. If everyone could do that, imagine how different the universe would be. Emma felt a warm glow in her chest. I'll do my best to teach people that. Both humans and Thraxians. It's not about being perfect. It's about being willing to try. More weeks passed. Emma's work expanded. She traveled to other parts of the Thraxian homeworld, meeting with different communities. She helped establish human cultural centers where homesick Earthworkers could gather and feel less alone. She worked with Thraxian teachers to develop programs that taught both species about each other. And every night she returned to the garden. Sometimes she found Nethys alone and they talked like old friends. Sometimes she found Valen there, and he asked her advice about his concerns as emperor. Sometimes she found them both together, and the three of them simply enjoyed each other's company. The dragon still cried sometimes. The weight of memory was not something that could be erased, but the crying was different now. It was a release instead of a prison. It was a celebration of lives lived instead of just a mourning of lives lost. One evening, Emma brought a gift. It was a small plant from Earth, something called a violet. She had requested it specially from a supply ship. I wanted to give you something from my world, she explained to Nethys. Something living that you can take care of. So you remember that life goes on, even as we remember the past. Nethys stared at the tiny purple flowers with wonder. It is beautiful, she said. I will treasure it always. Valen helped Emma plant the violet in a special spot in the garden, right next to where Nethys liked to rest. It will grow here, he said, and every time Nethys sees it, she will think of you. And I will remember, Nethys said, that a small human maid changed the course of an empire just by being kind. Emma laughed. I didn't change an empire. I just helped two friends remember how to talk to each other. Sometimes, Valen said, putting a hand on Emma's shoulder, that is exactly what an empire needs. As the 3 moons rose higher in the sky, casting their light over the garden, Emma felt a deep sense of peace. She had come to this alien world looking for adventure and money. She had found something much better. She had found purpose. She had found friendship. She had found proof that kindness could bridge any gap, no matter how wide. And in a garden under alien stars, a dragon who once wept in loneliness now sang songs of joy, while an emperor and a human maid listened and smiled. The end of one story, the beginning of countless others.